Lolcow Live is falling apart. So if you don't keep up with Lolcow Live, it's basically a live show where a couple of lolcows sit around and talk. Boogie, Wings, and formerly a host known as Tommy C. But Keemstar is kind of the executive producer of this show, and he needs to stick his nose in everything because at the end of the day, Keem is a bit of a diva. The show ended up rising to prominence during a point in time where Boogie2988 went from doing a crypto scam to immediately turning around and basically lying about his cancer this whole time. Then the entire thing fell apart, everybody was joining in to rip Boogie a new one, and it was great content, all things considered. I mean, this guy was lying about something you just don't lie about, which is cancer, and everybody who was coming in had nothing but amazing things to say about how bad it was that Boogie was doing this. It made for really good content and very good schadenfreude, and basically embodies what makes reality TV great.
I hate being alive! I hate being alive! I hate breathing! I hate being alive! I'm in tremendous pain! I'm in tremendous pain! Help me! Help me! Help me! I'm in so much pain! I'm in so much pain! I'm in so much pain!
All right, well then, okay, let's get off the internet.
But good things must come to an end, and that they did. You see, some background baseball on this is that Keem and Tommy have previous beef. 5 or 6 years ago, they got into some drama regarding a podcast called Baited, and as a result of that, there's been a tension-like hatred ever since. Tommy can definitely put aside his feelings for Keem because he understands that he needs to make money for his family, which is a responsible and adult thing to do. But Keemstar, well, like I said, Keemstar's a diva. He hasn't let anything go from those Baited days, and he's been patiently biding his time with Lolcow Live to when he could get rid of Tommy. Now, I've talked to people behind the scenes, and yeah, basically Keem has been plotting to get rid of Tommy since like December, or a little earlier than that. Basically, Keemstar would go on like a screaming rant and basically reveal that, hey man, Tommy's got to get taken to boot. And honestly, that's kind of shit. Since that moment, I could understand that Lolcow was kind of soured in a lot of people's minds, but Tommy was on the show for a while. Anyway, Keem knew that this NDA thing was going to end up being the straw that would break the camel's back with Tommy, and thus, that ended up being why Tommy was let go from the show. You see, Keem wanted to introduce an NDA to the podcast in order to control some of the things that are talked about, in particular money-related issues, which, I mean, ultimately and fundamentally shows that Keem really doesn't understand what makes the Lolcow concept an appealing thing in the first place. Now, what's even funnier is that the Lolcows are so desperate, people like Boogie not only signed it, but ended up going on a live stream and repeating every single talking point of Keemstar's. And you can tell the talking points of Keemstar's because there's a certain way that Keemstar talks that you can understand when people are just kind of copying his ideas. So that was definitely happening with Boogie, but it's very amazing and shows how little spine that Boogie has that he just goes and he does this. But the reasoning for Tommy not signing an NDA was basically because he wants to be able to talk openly and freely about what kind of content he's doing with Lolcow Live on his other platforms, which rightfully so. As a drama content creator, his credibility definitely matters, and signing an NDA could be a sign of potential conflict in the future for his drama credibility. But make no mistake, this ultimately is as petty and shallow as it is. Keemstar just doesn't like Tommy, and he wanted to get rid of him, and had plotted for that for a while. It goes really no deeper than that. And because it is such a shallow and stupid reason to remove someone, people have seen right through it, and a lot of the goodwill the show's garnering is starting to fade away. I mean, me personally, after this whole oh, we're looking for a new host thing, I don't really care.
What's up, motherfucker? It's SMaggle
Camera
Daggle!
on! Camera on!
W Smaggles in chat.
That lasted about all of 2 seconds. Good job, SMaggle.
I still don't understand that one.
Smaggles is the Lolcow mascot. I hate to tell y'all motherfuckers. Y'all hating on him.
I'm kind of the impression now that a lot of the show is actually scripted. There's been plenty of conversations behind the scenes about what is and isn't real. And, you know, honestly, I'm just not interested in covering stuff that isn't real. Manufacturing a lolcow is not what a lolcow is. People need to be constantly stepping on rakes and making a fool of themselves. That is what makes it funny. Somebody who's doing it and believes that they're doing the right thing. For example, King Cobra is a guy who's I mean, ultimately, I don't know how bad of a person he is. I'm not 100% caught up on his lore, but here's the pitch. The guy is basically a swamp goblin, or that's how people describe him as. He's basically a guy who makes all these weird botulism-like mead drinks in his house so that way he can get drunk. Anybody who's made mead or even have a passing inclination towards fermentation knows why it's disgusting and bad to be making the kind of drinks that he does. But he does it anyway. What's funny is the fact that he just drinks these and thinks that it's completely okay to do. Now, you might be thinking, Diesel, why don't people go and tell this guy that these are the wrong things to do? Well, they do, but he believes so fully in himself that this is not the wrong thing to do that he keeps doing it. It's the same reason people like shows like Extreme Cheapskates or, you know, MILF Manor or any other kind of reality TV. It's the internet equivalent of that. It's just, this guy is doing something ridiculous. Man, am I glad I'm not him. It's basically that for Boogie and Wings. But Wings is actually kind of normal. I mean, I guess if you want to like get on him, recently he was found out to be yorking it to like transgender woman porn, but like honestly, man, it's 2024. I don't think anybody cares. I mean, I don't. I'm certain older people do, but like, you know, man, just let your freak flag fry, blah blah blah. I do these things in one take. Let your freak flag fry. We'll just leave it. I'm leaving it in there. It's staying like that. But what we're seeing now with Lolcow Live is actually what makes Keemstar a Lolcow. Make no mistake, DJ Killer Keemstar has always been a bit of a Lolcow, mainly because he has such a fragile ego. The guy always needed to be the biggest person in the room, the most successful person in the room. He's very shallow about the way he thinks, and personally, in my opinion, he doesn't really understand content in the way that he thinks he does. Keemstar is basically a really good gambler, but just because you hedge your bets on something doesn't mean every single one of them is a win. And Keemstar has had plenty of losses too, but he'll only think about the wins, and he'll also attribute a lot of that to his own personal knowledge and success, rather than the fact that it could be luck, which a lot of it is. He's gotten very lucky that Boogie is as bad of a person as he is. I don't think if Boogie didn't have the cancer thing, there would be nothing happening on Lolcow Live. Like, full on end stop. There would just be nothing going on. For some reason, yeah, they're not bringing guests on the show, which would also be helpful. There needs to be more interesting people or things to carry on to content when there's nothing going on. And for some reason, that's not happening. More so than that, it's getting constantly wrapped up in all these personal squabbles and weird, ridiculous tangents back and forth that are all basically because of Keemstar's ineptitude to deal with people in the workspace. I think the funniest example of this is about 7 hours ago, Keemstar went onto the Lolcow Live subreddit and made this post about how he's excited for the show. Which of course he's excited for the show now that Tommy's gone. Now Keem gets to run everything. Because, I mean, he totally wanted to, you know, just be the background figure in this, but he has to take the reins. It's very ridiculous. But yeah, Keem made this post, and it was just completely, like, asininely stupid. And, you know, immediately ended up getting ragged on by the community. And as the Lolcow Live community turns on him, it's just gonna get worse and worse. I mean, you just read through these replies. The top one was, I wish I could get excited about something so boring, it was awful. And then followed by, you're delusional, Keem. Pretty much everything, even the most positive and forgiving of takes and conversations at Keemstar basically say to bring Tommy back. Everybody is saying to bring Tommy back because Tommy works as a straight man in between the two crazy guys. You need a straight man in a duo of crazy guys because it helps ground the content and give somebody something to latch on to. But Keem doesn't really seem to understand that rule, and he seems to think that bringing on a new host will be good. I mean, sure, maybe it will be good. I don't think anybody has a problem with guys like Billy the Fridge or Camelot, but Tommy basically fulfilled that role of the straight man, and people resonate and attach themselves to that character, which allows them to stay invested in the show long term. So when you up and take that character away, some people are going to actually get pretty freaking annoyed. And Tommy was as real gets. So I assume if stuff is faked or the NDA is used to keep certain topics off of the table, then, well, you know, it's not going to go well for Tommy. People continue to go on to say, thoughts, lol? Yeah, great stream. You're so out of touch. You're a lolcow, Keem. Followed by, I get the feeling Keem doesn't really understand what makes lolcows funny. One of the major things of being a Lolcow is them complaining about money / begging for money like rats, and yet Keem wants to pull an NDA so they don't talk about money. Legit, you don't understand what makes Lolcows funny at all, or you have a dodgy reason for wanting that NDA. Which, I mean, again, I think the NDA just exists for a very petty and stupid reason to get rid of Tommy. But, I mean, could there be other reasons? There is definitely a possibility of that. I don't know. The begging for money thing isn't probably what makes Lolcows interesting for me, but to say that's a concept that doesn't exist. The thing is that Lolcows can make a career off of being stupid now because, well, people can just pay money to insult them and they get breaded for it. But I don't really think that's what makes them interesting. I think it's more like the thing where they keep stepping on rakes repeatedly over and over and making mistakes even knowing they're bad, but then verbalizing that they're actually doing the correct decision. I think that's what makes it more interesting. But yeah, I think the comments that Keem is getting here are representative of the overall tone that people are starting to have towards the show. I really didn't like what Keem did to Tommy. Yeah, I mean, I am a commentary channel, so I guess that's expected of me or whatever the fuck. I really wouldn't take that position if I didn't actually feel strongly about it personally, but Keemstar seems to think we all sit around in a little cabal and always agree with each other. But only when it's not him. Only when it's not him who's also in the cabal, which, by the way, he is. He is in that cabal. He is in that conversation. But because he's getting heat, all of a sudden it's antagonistic. It's great and funny how the commentary community is great when Keemstar is able to reward himself with it. But then it's bad when they're rightfully calling him out for the same exact behavior that they would call out other people. But that, again, that's just really how Keemstar acts. That's his whole, like, diva shtick. No, I'm not a Lolcow. I'm actually a very good guy who's well-adjusted and yada, yada, yada. I don't know, man. It's just the stuff that Boogie was saying rubbed me the wrong way. It is definitely indicative of what Keemstar was saying, and it kind of represents this whole idea that Keem just really doesn't understand the content ecosystem, like he's trapped in a time before. We live in a different world now with content, and Keem's been, I mean, he hasn't been out of the game, but in my opinion, he's been pretty out of the game. So he's kind of behind on the times and attitudes of the people at hand. And as a result of that, I think a lot of his content will suffer because of it. I mean, I've heard whispers of Drama Alert coming back, and I'm sure Drama Alert will do just fine in this current climate. But I don't think people are really interested in watching Keemstar stare at the camera and say what was going on in a very, you know, newscastery sports guy voice. I don't know, I just feel like the attitude's a bit different these days. And I don't know if Keem really realizes that, or if he thinks he'll be welcomed back as like some paragon of news, even when Keemstar has a bunch of foibles where he's been wrong. Which, you know, people are allowed to be wrong, but Keem seems to very sheepishly admit when he's wrong, rather than just say, yeah, I made a mistake, and then just move on. He does it sometimes, but it's very, you know, where the wind blows. It's when he just feels like it, rather than when it's appropriate to. Anyway, that's really just my whole thoughts on Lolcow Live. I had been covering it on stream, and I'll probably finish covering it, like, today, because I'm recording this Tuesday. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just not, like, really interested in it, and I feel it becoming a bit of a drain emotionally and just kind of boring. All right, while editing, there was a little bit of a Lolcow update. So Keemstar was threatening to not pay Tommy for his time working in July, Tommy being the host they let go, and basically it became a whole big thing. Keem was refusing to agree that Tommy did work in July, which he did multiple times, and so it came a whole big thing of basically, I'm not gonna pay Tommy, I'm being scammed out of my money. But in reality, yeah, just pay Tommy the money. Anyway, it took a lot of pushback that Keem got in order for him to go settle and pay Tommy. But it seems like all's well that ends well, as Keem eventually came around and decided to cave. Now, you guys gotta understand here that a lot of the people calling Keem out are either friends or mutuals with Keem. They're people who are on friendly terms with him. So them calling Keem out is basically just Keem's people, or, I mean, not even people, because it's not like, you know, commentary agrees with Keemstar all the time. But commentary is holding Keemstar accountable, and that's what's happening. Keem seems at least mildly grateful, but also pretty annoyed. But it seems like it's a not amicable split, but better than what was happening before. Not everything's said and done yet, but that seems to be where things are now. So, yeah, take care.